Ladies and gentlemen, on today's episode of the Tackle Talk podcast, we've got a new 3-foot-long worm. Tennessee gets a new state record. The Bassmaster Elite Series wraps up their Santee Cooper event. We debate the merits of throwing poppers on casting or spinning gear. There are some friends in the fishing world that could use your prayers, and we answer your questions about seasons, live bait, weird bait choices, and more on today's episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk podcast, brought to you by The Rod Locker. Premium gear and expert advice from a staff you can trust. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk podcast. Before we get into the main portion of the show today, I have to give a big thank you to the folks that we thank at the beginning of every episode of Tackle Talk, The Rod Locker. And I have some exciting news for you guys. Mark your calendars, because Saturday, June 6th, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., The Rod Locker is holding an in-store customer appreciation event, and the entire public is welcome. So you can come out from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on June 6th, at the Rod Locker in Evansville, Indiana, 500 North Congress Avenue. And there is going to be food. There's going to be trade-in boosts of 15% on your rods and reels that day. So bring in your extra rods and reels so you can get money to spend at the appreciation event. And there will be a ton of sales and deals going on that you can only get by showing up on June 6th. And the cool part, I'll actually be there all day long. I will be there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So come hang out. We're going to talk fishing. It'll be so fun to meet all of you that come on out to this event. You're going to save a ton of money. You're going to get some great deals. Just an awesome way to spend a Saturday morning or afternoon or whenever you want to come on out. Again, that is June 6th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I will be at the Rod Locker for their in-store customer appreciation event with trade-in boosts, awesome sales, and just a great time all around. So again, June 6th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. over at the Rod Locker. Looking forward to seeing you all there. Also, sorry to barge in here, but this is Andrew from the future, just popping in to tell you that I just heard that the Rod Locker is running 20% off right now as an early Memorial Day sale for all Dobbins rods. So 20% off, no coupon code needed, and because our code is sales stackable, you can use code TackleTalkMay for an extra 5% off on top of that. So it's more like 25% off all Dobbins rods now through Memorial Day. Again, over at the Rod Locker, 20% off Dobbins rods, plus an extra 5% for listening to Tackle Talk going on right now. All right, everybody. Today, we're going to have, probably for this week and next week, we're going to have kind of a tad bit shorter of episodes than we've had at least the past few weeks. I feel like we've really started to slip into that, hour plus territory in the past month or two. And normally I've tried to keep this show between 30 and 45 minutes a week to make sure that I'm respecting your time. And I know a lot of you like the longer episodes. I do too. But this episode and next week's episode will probably be back to our normal, kind of tight 30 to 45 because, and I'll have more information on this next week, but our next 4-part series will be premiering in 2 weeks. And those are definitely going to be longer episodes on a very interesting topic, an interesting series, 4 really cool guests. And again, it's all revolving around fishing tackle because that is the point of this show, and specifically the business side of fishing tackle as well, and getting a peek behind the curtain at a couple things. Wink, wink, nod, nod. So more information on that to come, but it is a mini series that I haven't seen anybody do before. So I'm pretty excited for it. So buckle up, more information on that coming next week. But if we keep moving here, the main thing that I want to start with today is probably the most important thing that I think we need to do this week. And it's to pray for a few very important people in the fishing world that are dealing with some pretty serious things at the moment. So I'd like to start today by inviting you all to pray for Alicia Wheeler. Now, Alicia is the wife of Jacob Wheeler. They have 2 young children who are probably, 7 and 5 or somewhere around there. And last week, Alicia made it public that she was diagnosed with cancer. Now, as I'm recording this portion of the episode, I don't think that they have fully made public the full diagnosis and what it is and, stages and all kind of that stuff. And to be honest, I'm not sure that they even fully know what this is yet. But also, out of respect for the family, that's not the important part of this anyway. The important part is keeping Alicia, Jacob, and their children in our prayers. It breaks your heart. That family has gone from the highest of highs, especially with Jacob coming off of a historic Red Crest championship, to now, just a few weeks later, the news that nobody ever wants to hear. So I would just ask that you keep the Wheeler family in your prayers this week. The second person we need to lift up is Matt Arey. And Matt recently announced that he was stepping away from the Bassmaster Elite Series for the remainder of the 2026 season because he shared that he is battling lymphoma. And Matt said, according to Sports Illustrated, "If you're reading this, please pay attention to your body. Like my case suggests, things can happen fast." And then he noted that he had just gone in for routine blood work a few months earlier and there were no issues at all. And then he said, "Being here to watch my girls grow up means more to me than anything. I thought about my family and I did not hesitate to put fishing in the back seat and pour all of my energy and effort into fighting this disease. Lymphoma is treatable and curable." So we pray for Matt Arey for a safe and swift recovery from his lymphoma diagnosis. And then our third person that we need to keep in our prayers this week is Jamie Hartman. And Jamie is a Bassmaster Elite Series pro who also had to step away this week from the Bassmaster Elite Series. And it sounds like not just for the 2026 season, but it sounds like he is calling it a career as he battles what is called slipping rib syndrome. So again, according to Sports Illustrated's Kurt Mazurek, diagnosed with slipping rib syndrome, Hartman suffers a rare condition where the lower ribs move excessively and slip under adjacent ribs, which irritates intercostal nerves and causes sharp, stabbing pain, enough to affect his ability to compete, travel, and even breathe. And then Jamie said, "I dealt with this last year too, but it was different. I didn't feel like I do now. It just keeps happening if I keep fishing." So Jamie Hartman, a two-time Bassmaster Elite Series champ, is stepping away amid health concerns as well. So if you could, I would just ask that you please keep Alicia Wheeler, Matt Arey, and Jamie Hartman in your prayers this week as they fight through their respective health battles. And of course, we wish them all a very speedy, safe recovery. Okay, that stuff is never fun, but I do feel like it's important, so I wanted to lead the show off with that today. Thank you all. So let's keep moving here. On a bit of a lighter note, we do have some pro results here really fast from both Major League Fishing and the Bassmaster Elite Series. So we'll start with the Bassmaster Elite Series, who just wrapped up their 6th Elite stop of the year at Santee Cooper down in South Carolina, May 14th through 17th. And as a quick reminder, this is one of the 4 stops this year where no live sonar is allowed. So no forward-facing sonar, just good old-fashioned bass fishing. So your top 10 here, and then a few takeaways we'll get to. 10th place, Greg Hackney. 9th place, Bob Downey. 8th went to Tucker Smith. 7th place, Kyle Welcher. 6th place, Justin Hamner. 5th place, Pat Schlopper. 4th went to Corey Johnston. 3rd, Drew Cook. 2nd place, Brandon Polinick. And 1st place, Chris Johnston. Now, this is Chris Johnston's 2nd Bassmaster Elite Series victory of his career, which sounds crazy to say out loud because it feels like he's won 5 of them by now, but it's just his 2nd, and his first was in 2020 at the St. Lawrence River, which means this is really Chris's first Elite Series win on a primarily largemouth fishery. He's got 2 Angler of the Year titles, and now he's got 2 Elite Series wins to go with them. The other thing to mention here about this event was it was a straight up Koike fest. Like it seemed like everybody and their brother, maybe quite literally here in the case of the Johnstons, was throwing an urchin or a Koike style bait. Whether it was the actual Koike from Hide Up, which it looked like a lot of people opted for, or you had like the Sixth Sense guys that were throwing their new abstract urchin bait. You had people throwing the Yamamoto unis, I'm sure. You had the Hags prickly pears out there too, but the Koike reigned supreme. So Chris Johnston was skipping it under like Main Lake docks, it looked like, and trying to target some of those less pressured docks versus relying on, the cypress tree bite or the vegetation-based patterns that were kind of available to them in this event as well. But congratulations to your reigning back-to-back Angler of the Year, Chris Johnston, as he takes home the victory at Santee Cooper for the Elites. Now, on the other side of things, as we speak, Major League Fishing Heavy Hitters is currently going on right now, and we are seeing some 8 to 9 pound bass come out of Orange Lake down in Florida. And by the time you listen to this episode on Tuesday, we might have seen some double digits by now, who knows? But since that event is still in progress, we will hold off until next week to give you a Heavy Hitters recap. All right, next up here, we have a little bit of fun news from the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, as they have confirmed they have a brand new state record largemouth bass in Tennessee. So the story here, straight from Tennessee.gov, says the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency has confirmed that a new state record largemouth bass has been established, breaking the previous mark, which was set more than 11 years ago. Darren Nunley caught the record fish in Nickajack Reservoir on February 28th that weighed 15 pounds, 7.5 ounces, and it was 27 7/8 inches long. This new mark surpasses the previous record from Gabe Keene, who caught a largemouth weighing 15 pounds and 3 ounces on Friday the 13th of February 2015, which at the time broke the record that stood for more than 60 years. A resident of Whitewell, Nunley made his record haul at 8 a.m. on a jackhammer chatterbait lure. He was using 17-pound fluorocarbon line and a Shimano reel. The fish was weighed on a certified scale at a grocery store in Whitewell, and then the TWRA sent a fin clip for genetic testing, with official results finalized on May 9th. So that's pretty darn cool. I think anytime a state record smallmouth or largemouth happens, it is cool because they're happening less and less over the past 10 to 20 years, it seems. Now, there's a bunch of arguments as to why that may be happening. Some people might find that kind of interesting because we should be catching theoretically more of them because technology is increasing. But at the same time, there were some other things that happened 10, 20, 30 years ago that really caught on, like catch and release and, less harvesting of bass, which probably makes for more bass, but less giant trophies as well, because you're not calling as many of those bass in those waters. So again, that's a whole different rabbit hole we can dive down. But I do think it is pretty cool anytime somebody's state record smallmouth or largemouth gets broken, especially in a state like Tennessee that has so much rich bass fishing history and trophy water. I mean, this is not like, no offense here, but it's not like the Maine or the Rhode Island, largemouth or smallmouth was broken in some completely random small state. This is Tennessee. This is the land of Chickamauga, Dale Hollow, Pickwick, Douglas, Kentucky Lake, so many legendary fisheries. So very, very cool that their state record not only got beat, but got beat by a healthy bit. It was like 4.5 ounces. So that is, whatever, a quarter of a pound. That's substantial when you're talking about long-standing state records. So congratulations to Darren. Congratulations to the state of Tennessee. A 15-pound, 7.5 ounce beast from Nickajack. Very, very cool to see. All right, next up really fast, I do want to talk about a new product that, or at least it's new to me, I hadn't seen this, that I saw this past week, I'd never heard of, and I thought, even though I might not be buying this anytime soon, I do think the concept is interesting enough to talk about. So the product we're going to talk about here is the Wurm, spelled W-U-R-M, Stickity Split. And it says here, the Stickity Split is 32 inches of uncut fish catching madness packed into a convenient, easy to carry package that lets you decide how you want to fish. Need a short finesse worm? Snap it off. Want to go big? Keep it long. Whether you're fishing weightless, Texas rigged, or wacky style, you are in control. No more digging through packs for the right size. Just tear, rig, and send it. With Stickity Split, you get one bait and endless possibilities, all wrapped up in a convenient package that's ready to go wherever the bite takes you. So it says in this package, you get one uncut 32-inch long worm, you get 2 wacky hooks, you get 4 offset wide gap hooks, and you get one little convenient package that all of this comes in. Now, I have seen this very loosely associated with lunker hunt in some places, and I can't tell if that's just the incompetence of certain retailers like Dick's Sporting Goods and Public Lands that are incorrectly calling this the lunker hunt worm Stickity Split, or if it really is being distributed or somehow partnering with lunker hunt. I can't find any mention or any relation to lunker hunt anywhere else except Dick's Sporting Goods website and the Public Lands website, these 2 retailers that are selling this. The rest of the world seemingly has no mention of any sort of collaboration or association with lunker hunt. So I'm not sure if this is a lunker hunt product or not, or if this is an individual company called Wurm. Kind of tough to tell, but I do think that the concept is cool. It comes in this kind of hockey puck looking hard plastic carrying case, and then inside, rolled up like, bubble tape or something, is a 3-foot long senko. Essentially, it's not a senko, but it is a giant worm that has little notches in it that you can tear or you can cut every inch or so. So you can easily make a 3-inch Ned rig, a 7-inch wacky rig, a 10-inch Carolina rig worm, or you can go like 1 or 2 inches for like a microplastic. So I like that it's modular. I've said this for years. I like customizability, I guess if that's a word. I like the ability for one product to be able to solve multiple problems. And this is kind of a cool take on that. I also love that the plastic carrying case comes with 2 wacky hooks, 4 offset worm hooks. It's just such like a convenient little package and a little kit that I think the whole thing is like $10.99 for almost 3 foot of Senko that you can cut into whatever size worm you want. And then the terminal tackle and the carrying case, I think it's a decent deal. It looks kind of cool. So I just figured I'd mention it here on the show. If anybody wants to, take a stab and go out on a limb and try that, it looks like it is available at Dick's Sporting Goods and Public Lands for now, and hopefully more retailers to come. That is the Worm Stickity Split, which I thought was cool. All right, we're going to keep moving here. And next up, it is time for the fishing poll this week. But before we get to the fishing poll, the Tackle Talk podcast is brought to you in part by Hummingbird. And right now, Hummingbird is running their summer kickoff sale where you can save up to $300 off the Hummingbird Explorer units, Megalive 2, and more. And you get free shipping on all orders over $249. So if you're in the market for a new graph or fish finder, their extremely user-friendly Explorer units are an awesome choice. They come in 9, 10, and 12-inch options with or without a transducer. It's your choice. Their touchscreen, their user interface and navigation of settings is very, very simple to use. They even come equipped with LakeMaster and Coastmaster mapping included, so you get like 10,000 plus lakes already saved in that Explorer unit and ready to go, saving you even more money because you don't have to go buy them on chips like you used to. So they're just incredible units, and that's why they've won award after award after award since they were released last year. So you can take advantage of that summer kickoff sale going on right now by heading over to www.hummingbird.com. Hummingbird, simply, clearly better. The Tackle Talk podcast is also brought to you in part by Minn Kota. And speaking of their own savings, Minn Kota is also running some killer sales right now where you can save up to $300 off a Tarova or $200 off an Ultrex. So if you're still rocking a janky old trolling motor and wasting half of your time trying to fix that trolling motor versus going out and fishing, and it has ruined more days than it has helped, it's time to make a switch. Your boat deserves better. Like, for instance, the Minn Kota Tarova. You can get the Quest brushless version. It's a dual 24-volt, 36-volt trolling motor, and you can get that trolling motor with Hummingbird Mega Down and Mega Side imaging built in. You get advanced GPS trolling, you get spot lock, drift mode, real-time battery monitoring, and an indestructible carbon fiber infused shaft that's guaranteed for life. All of that and more for $300 off right now with the sale they've got going on. So for more information on that, you can head over to www.minnkotamotors.com.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast Fishing Poll. Brought to you by Hummingbird. Explore more at hummingbird.com.
All right, folks, we are so back with the fishing poll with an insanely simple, straightforward A versus B question that I do just know is going to have divided results. And that's kind of what I'm secretly hoping for here, because I do think this can go both ways, depending on your situation and, what you're fishing, how you're fishing. I don't think there's like a right or wrong answer here. But our question this week was, do you, the Tackle Talk listeners, prefer to throw a popper on casting gear or spinning gear? And like I said, that, folks, is a question that I don't think there is a quote-unquote right or wrong answer. In fact, I'm not even sure there is a conventional answer to that. I think if I look at my friends and I look at my peers and people that I know, I think most of those people are pretty darn split. Because I have friends that swear by throwing a popper on casting gear. And, many times it's the same setup that they're throwing their jerk baits on and other topwaters like small to mid-sized spooks and ploppers and that sort of thing. A lot of times you're looking at like a medium casting rod, like an all-around topwater jerkbait setup. That definitely fits the mold for most regular size poppers. If you're out there throwing like a 1/4 ounce, a 3/8 ounce, even a 1/2 ounce popper, if you're throwing something, a little bigger, extremely comfortable to throw on a short-ish, like 6/8 to 7/1 medium, or maybe even medium heavy if you're in that 1/2 ounce range with like really big poppers. But those bigger poppers are plenty heavy enough to bomb on casting gear. And I will say it is easier to work those poppers on casting gear because it's just that comfortable, rod tip down palming action that you're used to doing already for jerk baits, spooks, frogs. Like we're all used to the feel and the cadence and the grip and the control that comes with a casting gear palmed in your hand, rod tip pointed down, and working that bait with that cadence. So if you are actually trying to get a popper to walk or to pivot in place and really kind of milk a small spot, then a casting setup does benefit you there, I think. But also, if you're just trying to target small, specific spots, a casting setup is the move. Because the thing about a casting setup is that if you are even somewhat proficient with it, you will be more accurate at close range casting in the, 30 to 40 foot range or less than you will be with a spinning combo. You just will. It's just the nature of the way that those reels operate. With a casting setup, you can pinpoint where your bait lands by manipulating the initial cast, your rod action, and most importantly, your thumb while the lure is in the air. You can slow that bait down without completely stopping its momentum, something that is almost borderline impossible to do with a spinning reel. With a spinning reel, if you want to put the brakes on your cast or slow that bait down while it's in the air, you basically have to close the bail of the reel or interfere with the line with your hand or something, which are not controlled ways of doing so. They're much more like hard stops. There's not a lot of nuance or variable braking there. So the burden of precise placement is almost completely on your initial cast, where on the flip side, if you are throwing a casting combo, you have a lot more control while that bait is in the air that you can actually manipulate on the fly. So those are your pros of casting combos, and I do think that it's a compelling case. But if you want to make a case for a spinning rod with a popper, the ultimate trump card is casting distance. I don't care what anybody says. If you give me a spinning rod with the same characteristics and then a casting rod with the same characteristics, we're talking, action, line, same everything, no changes. I will cast that popper farther with the spinning combo than I will with the casting combo. A popper on a 7-foot medium spinning rod with 10-pound braid on it can get sent to the freaking moon if you want it to, compared to how far I can cast on a casting combo. And usually for me, the name of the game with a popper is how far I can cast it. I'm not flipping a popper a lot of times at super close quarters or extremely precise, small pinpoint casts. I'm bombing a popper to try and reach a particular area as far away from me as I can be with still getting the bait there. And oftentimes I'm getting hit on the initial, 4 to 6 twitches of that popper. So distance is usually more important to me. How far can I throw it without those fish knowing I'm there or without spooking them? That is more important to me. Can I reach those fish from where I'm at without having to get closer? Now, you might be different, but for that reason and that reason alone, I am picking a spinning rod for my poppers. And before I crack open the results here to see what you all said, again, I just want to make this known. If you picked casting, I 1000% understand, and I think that the case is very easy to make. I'll never forget very early on in the Tackle Talk podcast, we had Rick Clunn on the show, and we talked about poppers for a long time because Rick is obviously one of the godfathers of popper fishing. And so Rick is a guy that throws a popper on casting gear, and not just regular casting gear, but heavy casting gear, like a heavy rod, really heavy mono. And that's one of Rick's keys to success for popper fishing. And he's caught, 10 bajillion times more fish on a popper than I could ever dream of. And he's Rick Clunn, and I'm some schlub in his bedroom. So yeah, I'm well aware that I might be on the wrong side of this debate, and I'm cool with that. But to me, I would pick spinning specifically because casting distance is so important to me. But I am interested to see where you all land, so I'm going to open this up right now. Enough talking. Let's get to results. And when asked if you prefer casting or spinning gear for your poppers, ouch. 62% of you said casting gear. So a clear-cut winner, only 38% said spinning, 62% said casting. That is a sizable victory for casting gear. And I'll say that I am surprised, but not that surprised, I guess. I would have guessed this would have been closer to, 55-45, but no, only 38% said spinning, so a little over 1 in 3 anglers. And just saying that out loud, only 1 in 3 anglers, I'm going to take it back. It does surprise me, especially when the prevalence of like smaller, 1/4 ounce and under poppers that is just on the come up now, your junior poppers, your finesse poppers. And I'm doubting that BFS is playing a huge role in this answer and the numbers from the fishing poll today. Maybe it is, but I doubt it. I don't think a lot of people really specified that. I really thought that the river and the creek guys would have swayed this a little bit more in the favor of spinning rods, but apparently not. So results do not lie. You have spoken. The overwhelming majority of Tackle Talk listeners prefer throwing a popper on casting gear. So I guess if I had to diagnose that, I would say that accuracy and control when you're working that bait just took precedent over casting distance, and I respect it. So congratulations to casting folks. You guys win this week when it comes to Tackle Talk listeners' favorite way to throw poppers. All right, and finally here, we're going to get to the mailbag in just a second. But before we do, Tackle Talk podcast and the mailbag are powered by Amped Outdoors. And Amped Outdoors is an industry leader in lithium batteries, engineered and built for all kinds of marine applications. We're talking trolling motors, we're talking graphs, live sonar, ice fishing, kayak motors, you name it, Amped has a battery for you. And with Amped, you get the highest quality components, you get waterproof case designs, and for their bigger batteries, you get Bluetooth connectivity and heated charging standard. And you get all of that plus a 10-year no-gimmick warranty and world-class customer support based right here in the United States in Hudson, Wisconsin. And I've been running these batteries really hard the past year, and the added tech of Bluetooth and heated charging alone has been a godsend, on top of them just being incredibly reliable and affordable batteries that cost like half the price of the batteries that I used to buy. So I cannot recommend these enough. Great people, a great company, great products from the folks over at Amped Outdoors. So you can head over to www.ampedoutdoors.com and take a look for yourself at the tons of different models and options they offer at incredible prices. Again, great lithiums, great prices over at www.ampedoutdoors.com.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast Mailbag, powered by Amped Outdoors, your source for premium, affordable lithium batteries.
All right, our first question here in the mailbag this week is from Paxton, who says, "Hi, Andrew. This is Paxton from Southern New Hampshire. I'm 13 and I love to fish. I've learned so much from your podcast. There's a pond near me and I can't catch almost any bass, but when it comes to fall, I always catch a bunch. Why do you think that is?" Hey, Paxton, great question. And it's one with a pretty simple answer, luckily. So you live in New Hampshire, and as somebody that lives in Ohio, I can tell you that it gets pretty darn cold in the wintertime here in Ohio, and I can only imagine how cold it gets in New Hampshire. And those fish in that pond you're talking about know that it gets really, really cold in the winter in New Hampshire, so they're not stupid. When that water temperature starts dropping in the fall, something very special happens, at least for us as anglers, I guess. Those fish eat. And they eat and they feed up for fall because they know that winter is coming. And they know that the hunting is going to get tougher. They know that they're going to have to conserve energy and work less to eat so that they don't burn as many calories. So it's just more like they're going out and gorging themselves now because they know that's a better thing to do in the fall in preparation for a long winter. So that's probably what you're seeing. That's what so many of these fish do, is feed up in the fall in anticipation of wintertime coming. They know that once the water temp hits a certain temperature that it's not going to be too long before it's going to be full-blown winter, and that seems to be their trigger. And that's why so many anglers, myself included, absolutely love late fall fishing, because we have biology on our side as anglers at that time. So yes, what you're seeing makes total sense. And I would say that the fact that you know that at age 13 and you have the whole rest of your life to take that information and build off of it should get you fired up, because you have a lot of falls left to fish, my friend. So enjoy them. All right, the next question here is from Oren, who says, "I probably just haven't heard this answered yet, and I'm working my way through your podcast from the beginning as I'm writing this, and I'm listening to your first mailbag episode. My question to you is, do you ever use live bait? And if so, what's your favorite live bait? I'm in Southeast Florida and absolutely kill largemouth using bullhead minnows." Hey, Oren, I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you trying to make it through our giant backlog of Tackle Talk episodes. So thanks for sending in your first mailbag question. The simple answer to your question is no, I don't use live bait. And it's not that I think there's anything inherently wrong with using live bait, because on one hand, I think you can make the argument that that is like the purest form of fishing ever. And I would bet that 95 to 100% of bass anglers out there started out with the same worm and bobber rig like we all did. And a ton of people still prefer to fish that way. Night crawlers, minnows, cut bait, bluegills, chicken liver, shrimp, like whatever you want to use, live bait gets the job done, and it is a highly effective way to catch fish, obviously. But for me and a lot of bass anglers out there, I think fishing with live bait is just a different activity and a different like thing altogether versus using artificial lures. It just doesn't feel like the same sport or the same activity. It's the same reason why some people, gun hunt and some people bow hunt. You're targeting the same thing, the deer, but there's two very, very, very different approaches to do it. One is just straight biology. If you put food in front of an animal, it will eat it. And the other one is, no, how can I trick an animal into eating something that is not food? So I feel like those are just kind of two different hobbies and two different sports altogether. So that's probably the easiest way I know how to explain that. So do I live bait fish? No, I do not. But if you pointed the proverbial gun at my head and you said, hey, pick a favorite live bait, I'm probably going to go with live shad, if that's an answer, if I'm allowed to say that, because I've just seen what trophy bass will do for giant live shad. Shad are defenseless. They're huge. They're easily visible targets. They're usually not dwelling on the bottom or in like highly hidden areas like bluegill and some other things do. So a shad looks right at home being dangled out in the middle of nowhere off of a hook because they're just kind of like roamers. So yeah, if I had to pick one, I guess I would go with shad again if you made me pick my favorite live bait. All right. And then our last question here today is from Dustin, who says, hey, Andrew, I got what I hope will be a fun question to answer, but first, a little backstory here. I recently took a coworker out on my boat for a fun day of fishing. He is more of a novice when it comes to bass fishing, i.e. using exclusively spinning gear and soft plastics with little to no experience of throwing any hard baits. Now, I'm by no means an expert by any definition of the word, but I like to think that I'm well versed on most techniques and I have a generally good understanding of bass fishing in general. Well, we went on the water and I noticed my buddy was throwing a drop shot, which is a fine technique for the lake we were fishing. However, what caught my eye was what he was throwing on it was a standard Ned worm nose hooked as his bait. I kind of chuckled seeing it at first because my experienced brain just thought that doesn't look right and surely it might catch a few fish, but he'd be better off with a standard flat minnow or robo worm. Boy, was I humbled as he proceeded to put the smack down on these bass, pretty much outfishing me 2-1 as I stubbornly fished my drop shot with a robo worm until finally relenting and putting on a Ned TRD myself. Overall, the whole experience was awesome and I was genuinely stoked for my buddy having a good/great day on the water despite being outfished on my own boat handedly. He had no idea a Ned rig was even a thing and had always used them for drop shotting, and he was surprised to learn that that was not their common use. So my question to you is, have you ever had a similar experience? Maybe you went out fishing with a buddy or a new fisherman that had something tied on that made you think, no way is he going to catch fish on that, only to be proven thoroughly wrong. As always, thanks for the great content and the opportunity to interact with your listeners. I've been listening since late 2020, and I still have as much enjoyment listening to every episode today. Well, first off, man, thanks for listening for 6+ years, I guess. That's awesome. I appreciate that a lot. That's a lot of listening to me yap about fishing. So thanks for sticking with me for 6 years, I guess. I do appreciate it. But yeah, if I try to rack my brain and think if I've ever seen anybody do something really silly that actually worked and made me rethink a certain baiter technique, nothing really comes to mind. I mean, I guess the thing is I'm probably guilty of that. Like I don't really recall a lot of other anglers doing that while I was like in their presence, but I remember throwing some weird stuff that gets weird looks, but obviously works. I mean, the easy one right off the bat is the buzz grub. A long time ago, when I first started doing that and kind of modifying these small, almost crappie sized buzz baits and ripping the skirt off of them and like gluing Mr. Twisters on them, that was considered a very weird thing at the time. But here we are. Now there are, tens of thousands of people later that have bought and thrown buzz grubs since, and it's not that weird anymore. So yeah, I think that's a good example. And oh, by the way, wink, wink, nod, nod, stay tuned for later this year if you like throwing buzz grubs, because we have something up our sleeve. But I've also kind of done that with musky baits over the years. Like one that comes to mind is I love throwing a Muskie Innovation Swimming Dog, which is just a giant 8-inch, 3-ounce musky-sized soft body swim bait with 2 giant trebles under it. But I was out with my buddy Jeff, and we were in like pretty dirty water. I'm talking like 3 inches of visibility. And I remember saying that I just wished that they had some sort of flash coming off of them at all. So what I did is I actually handmade a detachable front single 8 Colorado blade attachment at home that then you could clip on the front of that giant musky swim bait. And then boom, now you have a front blade on that, almost like a bucktail, where you just have this giant swim bait behind it. So the blade actually rotated right in that swimming dog's face. Like it was probably, I don't know, a quarter of an inch away from hitting the face of that swimming dog. It was just enough to give it some flash and to throw some water around. And it was just a really cool thing. So I called it like the dog collar, because obviously you got a swimming dog and you put it right there up at the front by its face. So yeah, the dog collar actually worked. It was very, very cool, and just a dumb idea that I made in my garage. And then I was like, dude, this will look sick if I can get it right. And I finally did. And it was just such a cool thing. It was like a modular little piece that you honestly could put on the front of any bait, but I was putting it on the front of those swimming dogs. But other than that, I can't think of anything like insanely off the wall that blew my mind. I've seen some cool things with rigging of flukes as of late. I've seen some people do some pretty squirrely things with a donkey rig or double rigs like we used to use growing up for saw guy, but they do it with some, weird things where there's like a Ned rig on the bottom, and then there's more of like a floating plastic in the middle that's kind of set up like, a foot above that Ned rig. Some weird things there, but no, I can't think of anything like super duper off the wall that I just thought was like, I cannot believe this guy is throwing it, and then boom, he smashes him. But there's some like moderately weird things that, yeah, we've all seen over the years. All right, everybody, that is today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate you all. I hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend. I hope you get out and go fish. We will see you the Tuesday after Memorial Day, obviously. So enjoy your long holiday. And then when you wake up to go back to work on Tuesday, we'll be right there waiting for you with another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2019. For more, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.